some things remain constant, and one constant we can always rely on is Justin Trudeau's hypocrisy. And in this particular case, he's not even trying. He's not even trying. This is a picture of or a video of Justin Trudeau doing a photo op in British Columbia.
Great to see you. Great to see you guys. Of course, of course.
So there he is, glad-handing, meeting people, hanging out. You may think, well, what's the big deal? Well, notice anything on their faces, because I certainly didn't. This is an Okanagan, British Columbia steam train. It's not federally regulated, which is relevant because the federal government has mandated masks on all trains. You cannot board a train, a Via Rail train from Toronto to London or from Calgary to anywhere else without wearing a mask. And the government says this is the science. The science says trains are unsafe, but when it's a political photo op in Okanagan, I guess the science is different. Have you been able to figure out where the science stands on this? Are masks needed on trains or not, Harrison?
Well, so what I think I've come to realize, Andrew, is that if the train is stationary, if it's a steam train, if it's one of these sort of tourist trains, despite the size, despite the number of people in it, that is when obviously the science tells us you're fine from COVID, you're safe from COVID. As soon as that train, actually becomes properly mobile, it actually takes you from one place to another, from one city to another, and it gets federally regulated, then of course COVID becomes a problem. So I think I'm coming to realize this, Andrew. If it's two things. If it's a stationary train or it's a touristy kind of stop, then COVID won't be a problem. And COVID won't be a problem if the Prime Minister is there. So he kind of has this weird force field. He can stop COVID wherever he goes. Only, however, when you and I get on a train, Andrew, like when the rest of us get on a train, that's when COVID becomes a problem. So it's slowly starting to make more sense for me. But again, I can understand the confusion from a lot of Canadians when they see this, when they see the fact that we're the only country in the Western world, basically, that is holding on to these mask mandates, that is holding on to these punitive rules. It's starting to become a reality that we are just such an outlier in this, and the Prime Minister is so caught up in this mask theater that none of it really makes sense. There's no amount of thinking, there's no amount of research, there's no amount of medical data that you can look at and look into to find where any of this makes sense, unfortunately. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. And people, the TrueAnon defenders are actually hilarious on Twitter right now because they'll say something like, well, it's not mandated there, or it's not federally regulated. I'm like, you're missing the point. The point is not, no one's suggesting they're breaking the law. The point is that they're if the law is supposed to be rooted in science, then the science would change when you're on a steam train versus on another train that's going in a commercial setting. And I by the way, I have to mention on a steam thing, this was like the greatest day ever for the train operators, because if you're powered by hot air, having Justin Trudeau on gets you going miles and miles per hour. So I think that's why they had him on. He was just a new fuel source for a steam-powered train. But I think the reality here is that it's the same as when we saw him masked up while he was doing one thing, and then the next day he's with the 90-something-year-old Queen Elizabeth II with no mask, but then he's wearing the mask when he's with Boris Johnson, but Boris isn't wearing the mask at this rally and this event, and it's completely made up. And the rules are that, I think you were right about this, Harrison, the rules are that the COVID is not an issue when Justin Trudeau doesn't want it to be an issue. When he wants to live life mask-free, no issue at all. When he wants to do whatever else is on his mind that he involves mandating things, that is when COVID's an issue. And we can't even figure it out. We can't unlock this information. He is the great oracle. So we all have to wait. When he takes his mask off, that's when we can. When he puts it on, we have to put... Actually, no, we always have to keep it on, even when he takes his off. That's the big annoyance here. So if you're a Canadian who is fed up with this, looking at this is it's just enraging. It is enraging. You're like, why do I have to, on a 12-hour flight from, Toronto to Tokyo, keep my face covered, but this guy who's mandating that can do whatever he wants?